Judah 17:12 says, "And none of them was lost, but he said of perdition, so that the scripture might be fulfilled." Which scripture was fulfilled? Where does this profession appear in the Torah? Which scripture was fulfilled? The one that said he would be delivered. Then we have Judah, his brother, selling Joseph to the Ishmaelites and the Midianites. So we see that in Genesis 37, we see when they sell Joseph. Then Judah said to his brothers, in verse 26 of Genesis 37, "What will we gain by killing our brother and concealing his death? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites." This is curious because Paul explains that the Ishmaelites represent the carnal Jews who reject the Messiah. Then, the Jews who were there, who rejected the Messiah and decided to kill him, gave money to Judas to hand him over. They spiritually, according to what Paul explains in the mystery he reveals, would be Ishmaelites like those who bought Joseph here. Joseph had never sinned, in the sense, let it be clear, of what the scripture shows us. No sin of Joseph is mentioned. He was still a young man, at 17 years old in that verse, which is curious because in Hebrew, 17 is the numerical value of the word tob, implying that he was still a good person. Good man, right? Even though Judah says no, he is good, only Yeshua has other explanations. But to continue, he sells Joseph here, and Judas, like Judas sold Judah, and Judas sells Joseph to the Ishmaelites, just as Judah sold Judah to the spiritual Ishmaelites according to the revelation of Paul. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain by killing our brother and concealing his death? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let us not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed with him. It says, when the Midianite merchants passed by, the Ishmaelites, Midianites, they were family. There are several reasons why one term appears after another. In the book of Yeshua, we see more clearly then. There we see that they sold him. I will continue reading. "They took Joseph out of the pit, brought him up, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver." Interestingly, in the books of the testaments of the fathers of the tribes, one of those testaments states that they actually sold him for 30 pieces of silver, just like what they gave to Judas, because 30 pieces is the value of a slave, and they sold him as a slave, which makes sense. But two of the patriarchs of the tribes kept 10 for themselves and distributed the other 20 among the 11, well, actually among the 10, because the other was 20. It says that none of them was lost except the son of perdition, so that the scripture might be fulfilled. This does not mean that there has to be a verse that says, "And the son of perdition will come and will be lost." No, here Judah would have been explaining that one had to be lost. Which one? He who was possessed by the spirit of the Antichrist, who will manifest as the son of perdition mentioned in Thessalonians, had to be lost. That person would heed the enemy as it was prophesied that he would be betrayed. There is the prophecy from Psalms that speaks of one who would rise against him, that he who eats bread with him, who shares his bread, would rise against him. Just as the verse relates to the way it is written, "As Esau set his foot, he lifted his foot against him in the womb of the mother, against Jacob." Then, just as Esau rose up against Jacob in the womb, and just as David prophetically writes that Ahithophel, his counselor, rose up against him and joined one of his sons who rebelled, and they took the kingdom for a few days, in the same way, one would rise up from among the disciples and betray the Messiah, one of his own. Just as it was prophesied in Genesis 37 that a Judah from the 12 tribes, like one of the 12 disciples, would sell to the Ishmaelites, in this case spiritual ones, the Messiah as a slave, which clearly happened. Psalm 41. In Psalm 41:9, it says another prophecy to which Matthew would refer, "Even the man of my peace in whom I trusted, even the man of my peace in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, lifted his heel against me." Then David, regarding his own experience, was speaking of Ahithophel at the end of the verse. "Lifted his heel against me" alludes to what Esau did against Jacob, and these two are prophetic because, on one hand, one of the disciples, as a counselor and close friend, rose up against Judah Hamashiach like Ahithophel, who was of his peace, of Shalom, a friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread. Remember that Judah gave a piece of bread to Judas through which Satan entered him, so he had thought then ate from the bread of the Messiah. Remember, he dipped the bread in the same dish. This is fulfilled prophetically. On the other hand, lifted his heel against me, as Esau lifted his heel against Jacob. Interestingly, Esau, from the Edomites, was from the land of Ishkariot, from where Judah Iscariot came, and everything indicates he would be genetically an Edomite, meaning a descendant of Esau who lifts his heel against a true descendant of Jacob, Judah Hamashiach. The other taking that place, usurping it, who falsely claim to be Jews, but are the synagogue of Satan, as Revelation 2:9 and 3.9 state. And curiously, he was called Judah, the name of the main tribe from which we get the name Jews, those who praise Judah.